Portrait photography can offer endless possibilities for creativity and self-expression. I've built my entire career around pushing boundaries of what is expected in a portrait. When you embrace creativity, especially in portraiture, it's your chance to blend your own unique style, but also take the individuality of your subject and make really one-of-a-kind results. As a Canon explorer of light, I am passionate about photography, about creativity, and I have forged my path to go beyond the ordinary. By embracing imaginative techniques, you can craft portraits that are captivating to the viewer, yes, but they also represent the essence of your subject on a deeper level, giving them more meaning. Plus, honestly, isn't it just more fun to be creative and to get everyone involved in that process? When I first launched my photography business nearly 25 years ago, I thought that there was a really narrow scope of what a portrait was allowed to be. It seemed like there were so many rules, unwritten rules, of course, but rules about lighting and styling and posing and the background choice, and I just felt strangled. These boundaries, they made me think that portrait photography wasn't for me, and so I went into the world of fashion photography. And fashion photography represented freedom. Freedom to experiment with creative lighting and filters and costuming, and basically just the ability to create something unexpected. And now, decades into my career, I approach portraits with the exact same sense of liberation and creativity that drew me to fashion photography. There are no fixed rules for what a portrait must be. And I want to inspire you to break free from traditional expectations. I continue to draw inspiration from the great masters of portrait and fashion photography, and I strive to add a little twist to this inspirational work with my own modern sensibilities. My goal is to help you to step outside your comfort zone, and I want to redefine what is possible in a portrait. Today, I'm excited to share 5 ways that you can embrace creativity in your portraiture to achieve impactful, memorable results. Let's dive into how you can make portrait photography even more exciting. Be inspired by your subject. One of the common challenges that many portrait photographers face is when they're figuring out where to start with creativity. What approach do you take? Like, how do you move beyond standard headshot and then try to make something personal? One of my favorite ways to ensure that a portrait feels distinct and it's meaningful is to let the subject inspire the direction of the shoot. Everyone has their own personal style, personality, their story. This can serve as the foundation for your creativity. So rather than relying on a one-size-fits-all approach, consider your subject's individual narrative, their interests, and this can guide your concept. This is what I do for all of my portraits, all of my portrait subjects, whether it's more casual or it's a high-end portrait client, and it helps me bring out something special in every session that I do. So to get started, what I do is I begin with a conversation. I want to learn more about them. So I want to learn more about their passions, their personality. And to do this, I ask a series of thoughtful questions to help me generate ideas. So what are these questions? Here are just a few of my favorites. What are you passionate about? This could include your profession, hobbies, favorite TV show, family, sports, anything else that excites you, ignites you. Feel free to share one or more passions to give us a lot of inspiration. Who are your favorite sources of inspiration for yourself? This could be a style icon, a musician, an artist, a director, basically anyone whose work resonates with you. What is an important milestone in your life, an achievement that you'd like to celebrate or reflect on? How would you describe your personal style and aesthetic? And these are just a couple of the conversation starters that I use to brainstorm concepts for my portraits. By tailoring the creative direction to align with my subject's personal story, the final images are more authentic, they resonate emotionally, and this also gives me impactful results, but again, it allows the subject to see themselves reflected throughout the work, not just a picture of what they look like. Creating a character for your subject is a powerful way to push boundaries of traditional portraiture, and it makes the shoot even more engaging for everyone involved. By imagining your subject as a character in a story or a scene, you open up the door to expressive and theatrical possibilities. It allows both you and your subject to delve into more conceptual narrative photography. Your subject is transformed. They're free of playing the character of themselves. Now they can be less self-conscious. They can get into their character. It gives you an opportunity also to play around with more interesting styling, like creative hair, makeup, wardrobe. All of these things build up the character. That character that you create with your subject and client, it can be literal, like from a book or a movie, or it can be more of a persona for them to embody. It could be inspired by history, or it could be an archetype. So for example, they could be an explorer or a warrior, a mythical being. So to help me brainstorm characters that my subjects may resonate with, I ask questions like this. If you could live in any time period, anywhere in the world, where and when would it be and why? Are there any characters from movies or comics or books or TV shows that you connect with, that you relate to, or that inspire you, or that you aspire to be like? Once we define that character, we're going to bring it to life through our costuming, so clothing, makeup, props, our lighting, our posing, all of those things work together to tell the story. For example, I often draw inspiration from old Hollywood starlets, femme fatales, and then I build a full character around that allure. And once styled, the subjects, they tend to step into the role. They're more expressive with their body language. They have a sense of freedom in front of the camera. It's not just a portrait of them, they're portraying someone else, someone who could be more confident, dramatic, and emotive. And by immersing themselves in this role, they can get rid of that self-consciousness and they can be photographed in a more dynamic and dramatic and engaging way. One of the ways that I break free of the expected portrait is through my lighting. By embracing experimental, atypical lighting, my results are anything but ordinary. I do not do one-size-fits-all lighting, but instead I aim to create lighting that creates an impact or fits the subject's personal style. Every shoot is different, but here are a few techniques that I use regularly to create drama and intrigue in my portraits. Hard light. While soft light is usually the go-to for portrait photographers, it is because it's flattering. Hard light, however, adds drama and contrast. The result probably does need a little bit more retouching, but again, if I want that old Hollywood look, if I have really defined shadows and sculpted light, then hard light is a necessity. Another way to create visual interest in your shot is by using these tight slices of light. I love this approach. It involves controlling the light source to create these just precise beams or patterns in the background. This has become a hallmark of my style. And this can be done with natural light as well as studio light with gobos. I can cast shadows using specialty modifiers, using an optical spot, for example. Over and over and over again, you see this eye-catching result in my work. Color gels. Another signature of my work is bold, saturated, unapologetic color, and I can do this through strobes and gels or RGB lights. The gels that I choose could be complementing pre-existing colors in the scene, like maybe they match the subject's dress or their eye color. The colors could also be for a mood, like warms, reds, yellows, and oranges for a feeling of passion and warmth, or cool, like blues and teals and purples to give a more tranquil atmosphere. These lighting techniques give me literally endless opportunities to experiment. I can take an ordinary portrait into something that's saturated, graphic, images that just bring the viewer in. It leads me directly to my next point, however, of using color harmony specifically for creative purposes for more impactful portraits. Color is a powerful tool in a portrait photographer's toolkit. It can evoke emotions, it can transform the mood, it completely changes the way the viewer feels about the image and the subject. By understanding and applying color theory, you can use color intentionally, not just throwing color into your scene. And I use it specifically for color harmonies. It helps me determine which combination of colors work well together. So here are some of my most commonly utilized color choices. A monochromatic color scheme uses a single hue dominant throughout the frame, and then you vary the shades, the tints, the tones of that single color, and that's what creates depth. A portrait that is styled in various shades of blue, for example, gives you a feeling of calmness, while shades of red gives a sense of passion or intensity. Analogous color schemes are those that are adjacent to each other on the color wheel, so red, yellow, and orange. By using analogous colors in your portrait, you create pleasing, cohesive color with a little bit of contrast. This is what I use all the time when I want the image to appear unified without a lot of tension, and this is probably the color harmony I use the most. Complementary colors are opposite each other on the color wheel, and this is the color scheme that creates a striking high contrast look, but the colors still work together in harmony. So contrast plus unity. While some people enjoy post-processing and compositing, I really do prefer to explore my creativity in camera. When I can see it in real time, it transforms the way that I see, the way that I direct my subject, that I pose them, the way that I light things. In-camera creativity can be done in so many different ways, but my favorite tools are filters, smoke effects, and shutter drag. Let's take a look. Filters. Lens filters, like the halo or star filters, add an over-the-top wow factor to many portraits. Now, the portraits I were taking, they certainly weren't boring before the filter, but it's the filter that takes them to the next stratosphere of creativity. Whether playing around with a kaleidoscope-like effect or maybe adding reflections or distortions, it can give the portrait an ethereal quality. And I reach for a star filter all the time, anytime I have a little bit of something that's a gemstone or reflective. Incorporating smoke to a portrait can add an element of mystery, drama, maybe even fantasy. And recently, my favorite tool is a handheld smoke machine. It allows me to create this beautiful dry ice effect to my portraits so the subject can look like they're on fire or do something a little bit more dramatic with atmosphere in the scene. Shutter drag, or slower shutter speeds, is another in-camera technique that can create a sense of motion and energy and life to your images. By intentionally using a slower shutter speed while the subject is moving, you can actually blur parts of the image. And what this does is it creates these beautiful streaks or trails of light. And what I do is I combine a strobe to freeze the subject's face in place with a long shutter speed and a continuous light to create purposeful blur And then it takes a static image and just makes it energetic and eye-catching. Portrait photography can be anything you want it to be, anything you envision. And when you feel genuinely excited and inspired by your approach to portraiture, that energy is contagious. It draws your subjects towards you, towards your creative vision. And so today I've shared 5 techniques that help me break away from conventional portraiture. And you can experiment with any of these methods individually, or you can combine them to make even more striking results. If your vision calls for something subtle and quiet, embrace that. You can stay true to your aesthetic as well as your subject. But if you're drawn to something that's bold and unconventional, maybe using gels and creative filters or eccentric wardrobe, don't hold back. Portraits are not confined by traditional standards. The process should never feel limiting or strangling or uninspired. The beauty of portrait photography lies in its ability to be whatever you want it to be. So why not make it something extraordinary?